Well, the weather has taken a decided turn for the worse. It's gone from lovely and sunny yesterday to snowing and hailing and raining in the last 4 or 5 minutes. So I'm going to come inside the garage today and look at this engine bay, which we cleaned off in the last video. Speaking of which, I've now figured out how the lights work. A couple of people, Jack from Australia in particular, has sent me some great photos of exactly how the headlamp cluster works inside. And what I'm missing is a couple of H4 headlight bulb holders, which I didn't know were missing from the car. And once I've got them, they're at £1.50 each. I can fix the headlights. That's one less thing on the list. So today, I'm going to move on to this. I'm going to shut the garage door, turn the heater on, and sort out this engine bay ready for the engine. You can generally tell how unpleasantly grubby the content of the video I'm about to produce is by the clothes I'm wearing, and that's in terms of dirt on the floor and in the air, not what you're thinking. This time I'm going to be taking this paint back off again. A while ago, before I started doing these videos, I actually took this entire... oh my word, it's snowing again. The weather in England, the first day of summer, and it's snowing. A few years ago when I started this project, I actually took this entire engine bay back to bare metal, and I've been searching desperately for those photos, and I think they're on an old computer in the loft, and I might have to venture up there and see if I can find that photo for you later on. But I painted the Por 15, which is incredible, rust resistant, hard, oil resistant, everything resistant paint, and it worked really quite well on the inner wings, on the chassis rail, the cross member. It looked lovely. However, on the top bit that you can actually see, it went like a pumicey lava effect, and it was horrible. So I took it all back to metal again and used it again, and it did it again. So I took it all back again and then repainted it with some etch primer first, and it was better. And I think I've done like 2 or 3 different, taking these wing tops back to metal, or back to a lower level at the very least, and every time it's come back in places. This time it's actually come back fairly well. I used etch primer on top of what was, I can't remember what's underneath it, to be honest. It's shiny and black, but in the intervening time it's been used as a table. It's got a few chips and a few marks. I'm just going to take these areas back, and before we went to shutdown, where's it gone? I picked up this actually on the Monday before we were locked in our houses, because it was basically all I could find in a hurry. Simon Eye's gloss black tough paint, which they reckon would be good for engine bays. It's going to kind of blend hopefully with the glossy black of the Por 15 that's down in the engine bay itself, so you won't notice the difference. That's the plan anyway. And then once that's all looking good, I can finish the last couple of little jobs on the engine, get that in there. Oh, warm coffee. I'll throw in a quick plug because, hey, we've got to make a living. You'll see these Furious Driving mugs, the stickers on the cars, the t-shirt I sometimes wear. There's all manner of really quite fun stuff. It's all on the Redbubble site below. If you click on the card that will appear on the top right of the screen now, or in the link below to the mug, if you click on the other items, there's so much, and it's all very, very cool. I quite like it. It really helps the channel. If you would like to buy a sticker, I would love you forever. Well, I'm not going to take the entire yellow area of this engine bay back to bare metal, because not all of it needs to do it. The passenger side still looks pretty decent. Unfortunately, this side has cracked really badly, and it's reacted to whatever was underneath it again. So I'll just do this area here back to metal, and just kind of give this a light rub down on the other side. I have actually had set on this engine bay for about a year and a half. A nice new set, oops, can't get this out one-handed, of engine mounts. These are sitting here waiting to just drop onto the chassis and mount that new V8. I'm so excited. These are the old ones, which are looking decidedly worse for wear. We won't be using them again. Right, I'm going to turn the nice camera off, put it in the car out the dust, go to the GoPro. Now enjoy the stop motion and a bit of music. Well, the snow stopped. It's sunny again now. How mad is that? This isn't for the car. I'm going to pop down the corner shop and get a bottle of milk. This is a tack rag. It's like a sticky, horrible, clammy thing, which is actually quite old and it's not as sticky and clammy as it should be. But the idea is you wipe over everything and it gets all the bits of dust and dirt out of that. Well, I thought was clean after wiping it with the metal prep, and already I've got goop on there. And it gets all the dust, all the grime off your surfaces. So even if it's only an engine bay, you want it to look nice, don't you? Well, that's the first coat. I'll come back in a while. I'll leave the heater on because I'm trying to get it up to, it recommends 21 degrees to paint the stuff in, and it's a fair bit chillier than that today. Well, that actually doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's not like a glossy or even semi-matte perfect finish that you'd expect from a paint shop, but it's way better than I was hoping for, considering I was doing it on a freezing cold day in the garage while my neighbour next door was cutting bricks. So that's all right. I just want to say a massive thanks to Extra Wallets for sponsoring this video, and you guys maybe do me a huge favour, check in the link in the description below, have a look at the website and see the range. There's some really cool things on there. It's beautiful leather available in 7 colours, 3 more in the Tuscan Italian leather, and this thing is fantastic. I use it all the time now. Not only is it tiny, barely any bigger than my driver's licence card, it holds about 9 or even 12 cards if they're thin enough. The main section holds 5 cards, I've got 4 in there right now, and they do not fall out. It's aluminium, it's RFID shielded to protect you from card cloning, skimming, ID theft and that kind of fraud. Push the button to get them in a hurry, because these days when you're in a shop you want to leave in a hurry. In the front you've got 2 more slots which are great for other cards, and in the back yet another slot outside of the shielded area to hold this, your solar powered card tracker. This will find your wallet anywhere in the world using the app on your phone. Push the button, it'll trigger an alarm on your phone so you can locate that if you've lost it, and vice versa. Push the button on your phone, this will beep and you can find this. So you can locate your wallet internationally or in the living room, wherever you are for the next 3 months. So please check these out. They're 30% off right now. Check the link in the description. Hitting that link would do me a massive favour, and I really do appreciate you guys doing that. So one hilarious problem I have with this driveway is it slopes in several directions, making pushing cars quite fun. And secondly, there's a great big ridge at the front of the garage as well, which I guess is to prevent water going in there. But it means if you push a car out there, pushing it back in on your own is virtually impossible. So I have to put this wooden runway out in front of the car if I want to get the front wheels out, so I can actually get it back in again later on my own. And as we're all social distancing from each other, pushing it back in on my own is something I will be doing later. The rocker covers are on, the inlet manifold is good, ready to go. I've got the water pump, distributor, and there's a starter motor over there. These is what I was waiting for last time, which are the little clamps which go on the end of the valley gasket. But before I started, I thought, well, this car's getting very close to actually running. I should see if the battery still works, because this was a brand new battery in this car when it came off the road a couple of years ago. And I tested it and it got 1.25 volts, which is not enough to start a car. So I tried charging it with various chargers, my proper C-Tech one, my £12 from Aldi one, my ancient one that came from my granddad many years ago. This is about 20 years old, this charger. None of them would even register they were connected to a battery, it was so low. So I used a proper dirty hack that I stole from Sam Crack, I think it was. If you've got a battery that's so dead it won't go, jump start it onto another battery which is good, and then put the charger onto the good battery, and the charger will then register that it's connected to a battery, and it will flow power to both of them and get to the point where eventually you get enough power in the dead one, you can go on and charge it. And now, after using some really nasty Sam Crackified swamp mechanic badness, this car's got a good battery in it again. So now, let's make it be in a position where it can actually do something and run an engine. Okay, these weird kind of, I don't know what shape to call them, they're kind of an S but half an S maybe. Little clamps just sit on top of here. There's little rubber lips that sit below there. And in theory, this all should fit neatly together, and this will hold this all in place. Now, I'm just going to give a trial fitting to this inlet manifold, because I just like to be sure that it does actually fit and the bolts will go in before I make a mess of this properly. Now I have a tray of bolts which I assume came out of this engine. Yeah, I'm joking, they did come out of this engine. This garage is going to look so bare soon once everything is actually fitted in the engine and no longer scattered around. And the thing I'm really looking forward to is having a gasket and inlet manifold on top of this. I've not got to panic about dropping anything sharp, dangerous or grindy into the bottom of this. Now, it also says to put some sealant on here as well, which I'm surprised at. Okay, so here's where it goes from being lovely and clean to kind of gross and messy. Now, these things are handed, so you do need to get them the right way around. Is it just me, or does silicone sealant kind of smell a bit like sick? Man, this thing gets heavy in a hurry. Okay, before I drop this on the floor, let's, oh dear me, drop it on the engine. Try not to get the gasket anywhere it shouldn't be. I wish I'd taken that old pipe off now. Luckily I put these bolts through bits of cardboard when I stripped the engine so I could find the right ones and put them back in the right places as I went along. And hopefully that'll mean these all just drop straight in with zero effort, and it'll be an absolute doddle. Hands up if you think it's going to be an absolute doddle. Right, this morning's task is to get the gearbox onto the engine. I was going to try and reattach the water pump properly, but I've not got the right kit. I bought a kit off eBay, didn't have quite the right number of bolts in it, so I'll leave that for now. I can do that when it's in situ in the car, and if we go through quickly enough and I'm able to, I will in fact carry on and put this entire thing in the car today. We'll see how we go for time. I would like to, but I'm making no promises. Now first of all, let's get the engine out. This thing looks so good now. I'm really excited about this. Now there was one thing. I did actually install all these inlet manifold bolts, but I wasn't happy. They looked really manky and horrible compared with the rest of the engine. So, to quote Jeremy Clarkson, I went on the internet and I found this, which is a packet of 3/8 UNC by 1.5 HD hex bolt and 15/16 UNC by blah blah blah. Basically, I went online with all the correct sizes and bought the right size bolts so it would all look pretty and nice. The other thing I bought was a pair of little 5/16 UNC zinc plated bolts to go in these little end grips, because they were really nasty, those ones, and I did not like them one bit. So I'm going to replace them with better fitting, nicer ones of those. I need some washers. Something else I'm going to have to do before I start this car up is replace all of these rubber hoses, because they are ancient and horrible. Goodbye old and scuzzy, hello new and shiny. Now, as I've already gasketed this lot in, I'll just take them out one at a time so I don't disturb the gasket. But I never set out to make this into a really nice looking engine. It was only ever intended to just be a fast, quick weekend, take one knackered old engine out, fit a nice new one in, and drive away with a bigger engine. Well, it's a working engine. A year and a half, 2 years later, I'm suddenly into making this thing as pretty as possible. If you happen to be rebuilding a Rover V8 yourself or tidying one up and you want a new set of inlet manifold bolts, there are 12 of them, but remember there are two sizes. The longer ones are 3/8 UNC by 2 inches. The shorter ones, of which there are 9, are 3/8 UNC by 1.5 inch. If anyone cares enough, I will put the actual item codes down in the description, and you can go on to Margnor Fasteners and pay about a tenner for the complete set, and it looks far more impressive than it did before. Definitely worth the upgrade, because the old ones were looking very disgusting indeed, and are a bit of a hodgepodge of not quite the same size heads on the bolts as well, so it looks a bit mucky, whereas this now looks far tidier indeed. Someone had carved a slot in the head of the old one of these, which makes it a little bit of a weak bolt head, but you can see why, because it's really quite hard to get into. You can't actually get the socket on this. I don't think I'll be able to torque this one up as much as the others. It's a 7/16 head, because it's imperial, old-fashioned. It's meant to be torqued up to 50 Newton meters of torque, which I guess is quite a lot for a ratcheting spanner to be applying. I'm going to call that tight. Just winds around to 50 Newton meters. I can't say Newton meters properly. Newton meters every time. Okay, click, click. Clunk, click every trip. Wow, that looks really good now. I'll lose that scratchy old Jubilee clip. That's going to make a mess of my nice paint. Wow, this looks just amazing. I am so happy with this thing. It looks like a really nice engine. Who knows if it will run or not? I don't care. If it doesn't work, I'll stick it in the living room as an ornament and probably get divorced, but I'll be happy with my lovely, pretty green Rover V8. Right, now, there's one significant thing missing from this engine, and that is a flywheel and a gearbox. So I need to put a flywheel and gearbox on this thing before I stick it in the engine, because I think it's going to be easier to attach it in the garage on the floor and dangle it all in one rather than put the engine in and then try and attach the gearbox afterwards. So I've got, in fact, a choice of engines and parts to use. I can either use I can either use this torque converter, which came out of the Range Rover donor, which I suspect is massively abused, and with that I can use the flywheel that came off the back of this engine, or I can haul this old 3.5 out and take the flywheel off the back of that. I don't know if there's any difference or not. If I do the 3.5 litres one, I can then use the starter motor, which I know it's a working good starter motor, as opposed to the who knows whether it's any good or not starter off the 4.6. You know what that means? That means I've got to haul 3.5 litre out, and it's not on a dolly. Look, this is the beauty shot. It's rotating before you beautifully. Now here you can see the Range Rover's torque converter. Now what this will illustrate though is these bolts here are also these bolts in here, which are a little bit fiddly to get a spanner onto. I think it's a 9/16. I did have the spanner on the floor. I've just dropped that torque converter on it, so I can't tell you. Pan the camera back a little bit and you will see what happens when you turn a torque converter upside down to show the back of it and you've forgotten to tip all the fluid out. Thought I was done with unfortunate spillages from this engine. That's better. With it chalked on some wood, I might have stand a chance of freeing these damn things off. I realised because I've not got the sump on the thing, because there's no sump on it, I can actually reach around here. Oh, come on, you so-and-so. And I knew there had to be a way of doing it, because otherwise it was going to be totally impossible. This engine's got pretty decent compression. Let's get this last one off. Oh, I've freed that one off as well. Easy peasy. Come away. Well, there we go. Off the flexi drive plate relatively easily. Now, I'm not overly concerned about how good a torque converter and auto box I've got, and the auto box was actually completely rebuilt not long before the car came off the road because it had an oil leak in the cooler and blasted all its fluid on the floor, and so it wrecked the gearbox. So it is effectively a brand new BW35 sat behind the camera right now, but long term this isn't going to be an automatic. I don't like automatics. Ooh, okay, so there we have one torque converter which actually looks a wee bit different to the Range Rover's one. Let's rest this here, but not so as it'll tip all its fluid on the floor. That looks like that on the back. This is significantly smaller. So I'm glad I made the call to do this because this is about half the size of the Range Rover's one. That's significantly different. So when I weigh that in for scrap, that's going to do good money. And tell you what, You can't see this because I'm staring into the gap where the camera currently is under the bench. And with these engines out of the way, that's a huge amount of space I've just freed up. This garage is no longer going to be cluttered in a very short time because this is massive real estate. Right, let's undo these things now and we can lift the drive plate away. So this is a 5/8 socket and I'm using a 6-sided one because that's better, and I'm using it with a step up adapter because I've got a 6-sided of the sort of 3/8 size drive. I haven't got a 3. Oh, damn it. There we go. That's tight. Jesus. There's my scaffold pole gone. That's going to be fun tightening these up. Always keep an old bit of scaffolding on hand because you never know when it'll come in handy for so many things. Pretty simple really. And will this translate over to that, I wonder? I'm sure it will. Yeah, that took quite a bit of force on doing that. Luckily that screwdriver was pretty knackered anyway. Let's get the starter motor off here and then we're good to go. That's 9/16 again. Okay, one starter motor which worked when the car last ran, so I'll give this a clean up so it goes on here and not embarrassing myself with unpleasant starter motor in this. Right, a moment of confusion here because this is the 4.6 litre flywheel, this is the 3.5 litre flywheel. Now, the bolt pattern on here is the 4.6 litre bolt pattern, a staggered 6 stud thing, and this is the bolt pattern for the 4.6. So the easiest thing to do would be to use this and put the 4 studs on there and be done. Now this one, if I were to undo these extremely tight Allen keys, which I believe are 270 Newton metered tight, which is going to be a pain in the bottom, that would then come to here. Oops, that'll bolt on like that. Okay, so the starter motor is kind of in line with that little studdy thing there. So I need to be using the 4.6 litre. Will this fit on here? Whoops. Oh, it's running on me. Definitely bad, definitely bad. Yeah, I can fit that on there. Oh, that's why this is the bigger one. That suddenly makes so much sense. That's why this comes out further. Right, I will fit the 4.6 litres. That's not a 7/16 anymore because this is a new car. Oh, it's a 13. Everything's a 13. Let's go and find a torque wrench. Apparently there's only 70 Newton meters of torque, or just under, which seems like a lot less than I was having to undo a minute ago. Now I am missing 2 of these bolts, and I don't know how, because when I took this thing apart, I put all 4 of them back in there. And how have they fallen out when the thing's not been moved? Is there a poltergeist in here? This is very annoying. I've just been searching where it's been put in the hope of finding it. This thing is really heavy, even without half its oil in it. Oh, damn. Well, this has put a bit of a crimp on my plans for today. I can put the gearbox on, but I can't put the sump on, because if I put the sump on, I can't reach those last 2 missing bolts. I'm going to have to order them from somewhere. Until then, I'm limited to attaching the gearbox. So let's do the gearbox now. So I've got the tail shaft resting on the trolley that this gearbox is resting on. Let's try and, oops, raise this to the right level so it's going in straight. Try and engage it so it will engage. Is this the same as the other one? Come on. Why is this not going on? It should just slip on there. Why won't you do up, you horrible thing? Right, I'm going to call it a day right now because I've been on there quite a while. My next quest is, will a Range Rover torque converter fit into a BW35 gearbox? I'm starting to wonder if maybe it won't, because I've just tried the old P6 torque converter and that just slid straight in, no problem. Yeah, I might need to fit the P6 flywheel after all. We'll jump off that bridge when we come to it. I'll leave you there tonight because this has gone on long enough, I'm sure. Well, I've been and gone and done a bit of research, which I should have done before I started really, because that torque converter I just fitted is never going to work with that Borg-Warner gearbox. Reason being, Range Rovers don't use Borg-Warner gearboxes, they use ZF gearboxes. And so they use ZF torque converters as well. That's why it says made in Germany on it. That should have been a clue really, shouldn't it? So tomorrow morning I'll have to pull that off, fit the 3.5 litre torque converter and flywheel, work out how to get those immensely tight Allen key type bolts out of the back of the crankshaft. And the only fly in the ointment hold up kind of thing that I might face is whether I've got a spigot bush or not that I can take out of there or anywhere in the garage. Probably not. If not, I'll have to go and order one. It's about £2 from Rimmer Brothers, but it'll be here in a day or two's time. That'll just have to hold me up until I am ready for that. Meantime, I've got stuff arriving every day for the W123, for the Volvo. As things arrive, I will do videos for you. I've suddenly and rather unexpectedly become a full-time YouTuber, as I'm no longer able to do my regular work at the moment. And so this is what I'm doing every day at the minute. So as soon as anything arrives, I will make a video about it. Kind of as simple as that, unless it's raining and cold, in which case I'll find something to do in here rather than welding in the snow, which would be no fun at all. Meantime, if you've enjoyed this, please hit like, please hit subscribe. Even better than that though, if you've enjoyed it, share with your friends on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that at all. Spread the furious joy, if that's such a thing can exist. And you guys, stay safe, stay isolated, stay indoors and watch YouTube while you're being free of anything horrible. And hopefully I will see you all again very soon. But I know you can't go anywhere. Captive audience, this is great. Be safe, see you soon.